Now, as we get ready to talk about date and time types, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of push yourself back away from your desk if you're at a desk, or get all the stuff out of your lap if you're watching this course on a laptop and you're sitting somewhere comfortable, because you're going to want to stand up and applaud in just a second here. And that is when I talk about the two new data types, or two of the new data types that have shown up in SQL Server 2008. The first one is called date. And again, new in SQL Server 2008, notice it only stores date information, no time. Now, a problem with the SQL Server time date data types in the past, date time and small date time, was that they stored the time, hours, minutes, seconds, even fractional seconds, in with the date. And so every time you use these fields and you tried to put the date on a report or somewhere, it always had that stupid time in there. And you always had to strip it out or format it or go to some extra step. Well, you no longer have to do that. By using this date data type, you can store from January 1st, the year 1, through December 31st, 9999. So that should take care of most of your schedules. It will use 3 bytes to store the data, and this is just a big, huge deal. The next data type is time. Now, time, again, new in SQL Server 2008, and you guys are pretty quick study. You know where I'm headed here. Time, surprisingly enough, stores time with no date information. Now, notice this guy is going to store hours, minutes, and seconds, and optionally, if we want it to, it will store fractions of a second down to nanoseconds. Now, we can store from all zeros, which is midnight in English, to 23:59:59:9999999, however many that is. That's translate to 11:59 and 99,999 seconds. This really comes out to accuracy to within 100 nanoseconds for any time of the day. It's going to use 3 to 5 bytes to store the data. 3 is the lowest you can get away with, and that means you aren't storing any of this fractional second time here. And if you store all of these, which is 7 positions, then you'll use 5 bytes to store that data. And so this is huge because it makes it very easy to drop date and time information onto reports without having to strip it out and play all kind of games or formatting and all that stuff. Now, with the time, you can specify the precision, and by that I mean how many numbers to the right of the decimal place, what fractions of a second do I want to show, how much precision do I want right there. And you can go from 0 all the way up to 7, so you have 8 different positions. And if you don't tell it anything, if you just use time like this without mentioning these, it's going to default to 7, which is the full deal, and it'll use 5 bytes of data. And there's what it looks like. Now, you still have your old date time data types from the previous versions. You can still use it if you would like. It stores the date and time together. So if I use the getDate function and insert that into a column, I will get the current date or the system date on my machine plus the current time, hours, minutes, seconds, and some fractionals there. Now, with date time, I could store from January 1st, 1753 through December 31st, 1999. And this is what a lot of people used. And it would also store from 000 to 23:59, and not quite that much precision, but it would stick the time in there. Now, this will utilize 8 bytes to store that data. So you're going to use 8 bytes no matter what. And then, of course, we had small date time. This is still available. It, again, stores the date and time together. And with this, you can store from January 1st, 1900 through June 6, 2079. Now, notice 2079, we're creeping up on that slowly but surely. So for some very forward date thinking type, especially financial applications, you could get in trouble here. So be very careful with the small date time. And I suspect most people are going to go to the regular date functionalities anyway. But just be aware of that. And again, this is going to store time in there with that date, and it's going to use 4 bytes to store all this data. Now, Microsoft hasn't said so, or haven't seen anything in print yet. Now, by the time you get this video, there may be something out there. But date time and small date time, I would imagine is going to be taken out at some point in the future. No big threat right now because there are so many things written with date time and small date time in there, but the date data type and the time data type really solves a lot of problems most people have had with these, and I would strongly suggest using those going forward. So that's your date and time types, and by the way, we got some new date and time functions, so you might want to go out and kind of play with some of these. I'll show you one or two of them in some different videos here as we go through the course. But for now, there's your date and time types, and this is a big one when it comes to new features in SQL 2008.